Do we really need to go over the roller coaster of emotions that is the relationship between Hamilton and Verstappen? Maybe not. In fact, right after he secured his second championship in Japan, many drivers came by to congratulate the F1 driver, but Hamilton might have brought in the sense of rivalry here. Having said that, maybe it's all one-sided, because in this video we're going to talk about Verstappen's respect for the 7-time world champion. Keep watching. First off, the rivalry between Verstappen and Hamilton isn't new. We've seen it all. The rivalry between the two drivers has become more of a pattern now. And let's not forget all the F1 drivers went in for a congratulatory hug. Yet Hamilton kept it short and sweet with a handshake and a tentative smile. Can you see what we're hinting at here? Well, let's just say that once a driver enters the rivalry zone with Hamilton, the friendliness is gone for good. Don't believe us? Ask Fernando Alonso or even Nico Rosberg. They'll tell you.
And Verstappen goes off the track, and that gives the lead to Lewis Hamilton.
If anything, Verstappen's never going to be able to be friends with the Brit again. Not that he wants to either, because that's clear. And pettiness comes into play when Hamilton refers to the two-time world champion as them. Like, maybe just be direct enough. Because when he does mention the name, he always seems so distant. Adding to that, reporters aren't going to step away from controversy like this. So when they asked Verstappen about it directly, he admitted that he already knew that Hamilton never mentioned him by his name. And with a smile, he talked about a lot of deep stuff. Let's fill you in on that. Following up, Verstappen respects Hamilton, even if it's one-sided. We're not going to go as far as making wild claims, but it's pretty obvious that he's not on Hamilton's good side. Yet it's not the same on the other end of the road. As it turns out, the Dutch driver talked about how he's always been taught about respecting people's achievements in the sport, and so that doesn't exclude the British driver either.
Hamilton tucks in behind the Red Bull. Hamilton goes into turn one behind Max Verstappen.
If anything, he respects Hamilton's achievements and victories. He even went as far as saying he is one of the best ever. I know it's not only the car he has been driving that helps. Well, while you still have to beat your teammate, the 7-time world champion managed to do that consistently. And the Dutch driver thinks that's pretty commendable, as he appreciates his rival. On the other hand, fans believe the two could have added a new chapter to their rivalry in Mexico. Verstappen was going to start from pole position, with Hamilton starting the race from third. Honestly, it seemed like everything was just set in place for a great fight. Not to mention, everything went downhill after last year's race. The relationship between the two F1 drivers, if there was even one to begin with, hasn't recovered from last year's events. Yep, we're referring to the fact that they went all out to beat each other in the title race. And of course, while it ended with the Dutch driver as the world champion, we can't deny that it ended on a rather controversial note. We don't think Hamilton's ever going to forget the way the Dutch driver snatched the title on the very last lap, thanks to race director Michael Masi's messy implementation of safety car rules. Now, there were also a few suggestions across the offseason that maybe the 7-time world champion was just so shaken by it that he'd decide to retire. Instead, he came back stronger than ever. At the same time, fans are sure that he still harbors rivalry toward the Dutchman who took away the championship yet again this year. And while he seems to hold a grudge, the 2-time world champion says he's got nothing but respect for the F1 driver. While we're not sure how much of that is heartfelt, let's not forget he still came forward on a positive note. Coming up, Verstappen boycotts Sky Sports after their critical comments. Simply put, he simply refused to give an interview to Sky Sports right after the Mexican Grand Prix. One of our guesses is that it's about statements Ted Kravitz made in the United States recently, right after he managed to win at the expense of Hamilton. Now, the pit reporter talked about his victory in America rather critically, more so than you'd expect, and Kravitz said that while we were all waiting for the epic battle between the two F1 drivers, it's pretty clear that he won because of better resources. In fact, he went on to say that the guy who robbed the 7-time champion of the World Championship in 2021 managed to overtake him only because he had a faster car. Are we really giving the car all the credit here? Yes, so. Plus, right after that, the Dutchman decided he wasn't going to speak to Sky Sports at all for at least the weekend in Mexico. But don't worry, he's still hyper-focused on the race, and none of this mess managed to distract him one bit. Clearly, he just wants this to die down instead of issuing a statement and creating controversy. If you ask us, that's probably a great move. Up next, Lando Norris slams Ted Kravitz after Mexican GP. That's right, guys, he isn't stepping behind either. In fact, he had quite a lot to say right after Red Bull confirmed they were going to boycott the channel, and Kravitz went ahead and asked Norris why he slipped from P8 to P10 so early in the race. In response, the McLaren driver replied, "It's only 2 positions. But are they really though?" Because Kravitz shot back, saying that it's still not ideal, implying that it was a much bigger deal than the F1 driver made it seem. But Norris didn't step back either. Instead, he took a jibe at the Sky Sports presenter, saying he should try driving first. Plus, this seemed to be hinting at what the reporter mentioned earlier about how the 7-time world champion was robbed of the world championship last year. As for Verstappen, his decision to boycott the channel isn't anything to be taken lightly. In fact, it's gonna affect the network's Italian and German channels. And just a few days ago, the entire team came forward to support the driver. Even Christian Horner wasn't in the channel's post-race coverage. Adding to that, they've shown interviews with Max and Sergio Perez right after the race. But the very same interviews were pulled from F1's world feed instead. As we know, Norris and Max had quite the relationship with the Dutchman, making it pretty clear that they've always been friends right after a near miss in qualifying at the Japanese Grand Prix. What's more, Verstappen couldn't take any more of the disrespectful reporting. In fact, he even confirmed that this was the exact reason why he was boycotting the channel. He went as far as pointing out that it was all because of a reporter, who we all know as Kravitz. It had nothing to do with the weekend after all. But the F1 driver talked about how he felt everyone was just trying to be disrespectful to him the entire year. Eventually, you get pretty tired of it, you know? How long can you take all of that? No one can change whatever happened. If anything, we all gotta learn to move on. And for the Dutch driver, social media has become a pretty toxic place. Plus, he's already talked about how all of this is just getting to him, so he chose to step away entirely. Once he doesn't respond anymore, at least it won't fuel the controversial comments and make another deadline. Finally, Hamilton and Verstappen unite amid Sky Sports boycott. We know Max isn't going to speak to the channel, but Lewis? It turns out he came forward to defend the Dutchman too. In fact, he agreed with everything about social media being a super toxic place, along with the other reasons he mentioned for the boycott. And it seems like the tables really have turned. Because think about it, all of this started because of Kravitz's very controversial comment about how Lewis was robbed of the championship. So if the very same 7-time world champion comes forward to support his rival, what else is left to say at this point? Honestly, it seems like the F1 drivers have moved on, so we might as well too. And after he's locked his 2nd world championship, it seems like he's on a roll. On the other hand, the 7-time world champion isn't ready to give up anytime soon either. In fact, even Daniel Ricciardo was looking into being a reserve driver at Mercedes to replace the British driver after he retired. But that's when he jumped in to make sure everyone knew that he's going to be here for a really long time. So, replacements aren't necessary right now.
Goes Verstappen, Lewis tries to cover him off. Verstappen through at turn 1.
On that note, we've seen some positive steps from both F1 drivers, so hopefully this rivalry isn't gonna last long, or at least make its way into another controversy. That's a wrap for this video. What's your take on Max Verstappen's respect for Lewis Hamilton, despite their rivalry? And while we're at it, do you think the swipe at Sky Sports' Ted Kravitz was well deserved? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.